On October 19, 2012, a 67-year-old woman in Okayama City returned home and found her roommate, a 52-year-old man, passed out in their bathroom. She immediately called emergency services, but an hour later, he was confirmed dead. An autopsy confirmed he died of heart disease. Because there was hardly anything suspicious about this, that should have been the end of matters. But when the woman gave his name to the funeral director, they discovered something odd. It wasn't his real name. It seemed the man she had been living with all this time had, at the very least, been living under a pseudonym. Why? Who was he really, and why was he hiding his identity? They called the police, who then took fingerprints, and they discovered something horrifying. The man was actually Koike Toshikazu, one of the most wanted criminals in Japan. So how did he end up dying alone in a 67-year-old woman's apartment while on the run? Let's go all the way back to the beginning. Shortly after 2 p.m. on April 20th, 2001, the remains of a 66-year-old man were discovered in some prefectural housing that had burnt down in Tokushima City, Tokushima Prefecture. However, it turned out this man had been attacked and strangled before death. Making matters even weirder, the following day, the body of his 38-year-old son was also discovered at the scene of a fire in what is now Sumoto City, Hyogo Prefecture, over 50 kilometers away. He died in the exact same manner as his father, deepening the mystery. Two men, a father and son, over 50 kilometers apart, who were killed in the exact same way in the span of less than a day. Their crime scenes were set up to look like arson, as the criminal hoped to destroy the evidence, and yet autopsies proved both had been attacked and strangled first. Who could have done this, and why? Investigations soon revealed that the son's bank books had been stolen, in which he had around 40 million yen saved. That's roughly $250,000 by today's standards, so it seemed a clear motive had been found. The reason the son had so much money saved was because his father had a disability. The money was for him. Around a month later, police uncovered their main suspect. Then 40-year-old Koike Toshikazu, a man who knew both father and son through their shared love of pachinko. Police found blood-stained clothes in his abandoned truck that matched the DNA of the son, and witnesses reportedly overheard Koike asking for his money back. Considering that the son's bank books had gone missing, it seemed the crime was financially motivated. The following month, wanted posters were put up around Japan, noting that Koike was wanted on suspicion of murder and abandoning a dead body. Considering the severity of the crime, police quickly wanted to find Koike. So they asked the Osaka University of Arts to come up with a unique catchphrase for his wanted poster that would grab people's attention. Something unique that would actually make people take notice, rather than glossing over it because it matched the majority of other posters at the time. What they came up with was simple. "Hey, Koike," it said, written in large red writing next to a photo of his face. A simple list of defining characteristics were then written beneath it, noting that he had large, chubby hands. He wrote with his right hand, but threw balls with his left. He was bad at using chopsticks and held them as though to stab his food with them, and he was missing 4 front teeth. If you see this face, call 110. For the most part, the posters had the desired effect. People quickly took notice of them. They were featured on TV, and calls came in from all over the country, from people claiming to have potentially seen Koike. The phrase, "Hey, Koike," became so popular that even celebrities with the same surname started making jokes about themselves, as their reputations were taking a hit merely for sharing the same name. However, despite the poster itself becoming popular, and numerous people calling from all over the country, police were unable to pin Koike down. They managed to trace his phone to Nagoya, Osaka, and then Okayama, but then the trail went cold. They were able to lock the accounts of the bank books he had stolen, however, before he was able to withdraw any money. So, if nothing else, they had left him high and dry and without money. He had killed 2 men for absolutely no reason or benefit to himself. In 2004, the statute of limitations for the abandonment of the 2 men's bodies passed. Police then continued their investigations under suspicion of robbery and murder instead, also opening a special task force to track him down. Over the next few years, they continued releasing audio recordings of Koike, as well as displaying his image in pachinko parlors in particular, as he was known to be fond of them. They also distributed tissues and even more wanted posters. And by 2010, nearly a decade later, a special reward was also put on the table for anyone with information leading to his arrest. The same year, the statute of limitations for murder was abolished, meaning that, at the very least, the case was no longer time sensitive. However, just 2 years later, he was found dead in a 67-year-old woman's apartment in Okayama. Just like that, the investigation was over. But what had Koike been doing over the last decade or so? How had a man with perhaps the most famous wanted poster in the country been able to survive so long without anyone turning him in? It turned out that Koike, whose trail had initially gone cold in Okayama, had been living there all that time. After he first went on the run, he scraped together a living by distributing leaflets in the city. One day, a woman who worked part-time at a nearby restaurant saw him handing out leaflets in front of the train station, and they got to talking. He then visited her restaurant, and before long, the pair became friends. He told her his name was Ogasawara Junichi, but otherwise kept details about himself private. At some point, Koike mentioned he was living out of a hotel, to which the woman responded that it was a waste of money for someone already so hard up. He should come and stay with her instead. And so, in 2005, the friends started living together. Initially, Koike was unemployed, so the woman covered all of their expenses. She gave him money to get groceries and other necessities, and then she cooked their meals herself. She also gave Koike a phone, seeing as he didn't have one. Little did she know he didn't have one because he tossed it after going on the run for killing 2 men. Yet, there were suspicions this woman may have had at least an inkling that the man living with her wasn't who he claimed to be. She did admit that she was aware the name he gave her, Ogasawara Junichi, wasn't his real name. And when police visited her 5 years before his death on a routine patrol, she lied and told them that she lived alone, hiding the fact Koike was staying with her. And considering they lived just down the road from the local police box, and only 500 meters from the police prefectural headquarters, it seems incredibly unlikely she had never seen his face on the numerous wanted posters still putting him on full display. Yet, this also may have been the crux of the issue. Koike lived this close to police all that time, and yet nobody recognized him. He often walked around without covering his face or even wearing a hat, and often greeted neighbors when he left their apartment. When a neighbor was asked about him after Koike's death, he noted that Koike looked nothing like his wanted posters. He was now older, his hair different, his cheeks more hollow, and even his eyes looked different thanks to age and nearly a decade of rough living. Another neighbor noted his skin was much paler than the posters, and he had a lot more wrinkles as well. It would seem that a decade of hard living on the run had changed his look so much that his old picture simply no longer looked like him. People were looking for visuals that no longer existed. Now, you might be wondering why the police didn't put out varying images of what Koike might have looked like after so much time had passed. Well, they did. Newer posters included edited photos showing Koike with various hairstyles, masks, glasses, and even aged. But these still looked nothing like him. According to those who had seen Koike before his death, he looked drastically older, thinner, paler, and generally not at all like the images on his posters. He had aged so hard, he was basically unrecognizable. And so, a decade on the run came to an unceremonious end. Koike died of cardiac tamponade in the bathroom of a woman who didn't even truly know who he was. His case was closed, and that was that. But what did you guys think of this one? Let me know in the comments below, and if you'd like to help support this channel so you can see more content like this, please consider hitting that join button down below as well. Every bit of support really helps. Thanks guys, and I'll see you again next time.